the slaves who are being ferried from Nyasaland, currently Malawi, to the West Africa. And at the time of the abolishment of the slave trade, they were settled in Kenya. His family, part of the family, settled in Mombasa and at a place called Freetown. And there's a thriving community there of these people who have since become Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, there are many other communities who settled in Kenya before independence, and some of them have not been able to get IDs up to now. For instance, we have the Pemba community, which was recognized recently. We had the Makonde community, and many others, Mr. Speaker, sir, who were here before Kenya, but they have not been considered as Kenyans throughout their life in Kenya. So, Honorable Speaker, the passing of Botela, who was able to mentor many radio and television presenters in this country, has been a great loss to our republic. And on behalf of the people of Mombasa, where he originated from, I convey my sincere condolences to the family, friends, and his workmates on the sad demise of this great person. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to move. I invite Senator Chergey, Senator for Nandi County, to second this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Mungatana requested myself and Senator Faki to move and second subsequently. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief. Our heartfelt condolences and messages of goodwill to the family, friends of the late prolific radio and media personality, Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Mr. Speaker, we continue to commiserate with the family. Mr. Speaker, many of us who grew up listening to the radio, and you know radio has the highest coverage across anywhere in the world, more so in Kenya, unlike TV, another mode of communication. And you know, in the past, Mr. Speaker, for us who studied the GHC, Geography, History, and Civics, will tell you mode of communications include radio or other form of using even horn, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think Leonard Mambo Mbotela was one of the celebrated media personalities with high integrity. So, Speaker, it's not to celebrate his life that with the advent of brown envelope journalism, Leonard Mambo Mbotela stood against intimidation and blackmail and resisted any form of brown envelope journalism that has engulfed the country. So, Speaker, another thing, secondly, Mr. Speaker, as a country, we must learn to celebrate and honor our heroes. It is sad that Leonard Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker, was interred or buried at Langata Cemetery. Mr. Speaker, somebody would say in death all of us are equal, but I was proposing that we must have a hero's corner. When you go to Zimbabwe, Harare, Mr. Speaker, heroes of the nation have been designated where they can be buried, not because they are more better or because of class in death, but, Mr. Speaker, is to allow the generations that will come after to learn, to have an heritage where they can go and learn and know who these personalities are. Mr. Speaker, and therefore I'm proposing, and I hope the Ministry of, is it Sports, Youth, that is in charge, and even Nairobi City County, should even designate land where the national hero should be buried and ensure, Mr. Speaker, because you remember Langata Cemetery, at some point it had been said it had been overflowed or they were no longer space, Mr. Speaker. So I want to propose that I hope in future we should have a hero's corner where people of integrity, Mr. Speaker, people who have served this nation with distinction that have been celebrated can be buried, Mr. Speaker. And I remember before the advent of devolution, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a proposal to locate Langata Cemetery to Mavoko, but we know what happened because the Makaburi or cemetery scandal that befell the Nairobi City Council and then through Minister of Local Government. But this is the challenge. I hope the Nairobi City County has a foresight to even do that, Mr. Speaker. But I don't think they have foresight. If they can take that before electricity house, then that's another story for another day. So, Speaker, the second thing is that we should honor state burial with all state honors, Mr. Speaker, such heroes, where we have full recognition through state burial, Mr. Speaker, because this is somebody who said, Jeo Nungwana, Leonard Mambo Botella would have a chance, second in life, would ask Jeo Nungwana for most things that is happening in this country: corruption, lethargy, poor governance, Mr. Speaker, poverty, lack of water, Mr. Speaker. Many Kenyans are going without food, not only even in areas that traditionally would be, even here in Nairobi, like Mukuru, Kwanjenga, Kibra, and many other. And he would ask us as leaders, J.U. Niungwana. And we would be ashamed of it, Mr. Speaker, because it doesn't bring the goodness of what, and that J.U. Niungwana will resonate very well with many people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, number 4 is that under the National Heroes Council, we should consider, I would have expected the brand new chairman of lands, Senator Faki, to say would propose in Nairobi, Mombasa City County, a street to be named again, after Mama Mbotela in Mombasa. But also we want to urge the government to name at least 1 or 2 streets in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, and other cities in the country to celebrate. Because sometimes we have names that even do not belong to us, that do not belong, Mr. Speaker, to the local people or local leadership, Mr. Speaker. So I want to ask, with a lot of respect, the government and even the county government to seize the moment and even name, Mr. Speaker, one of the streets after Mambo Mbotela Street, Mr. Speaker. And secondly, even the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication here, Mr. Speaker, in Nairobi, we should name it after Leonard Mambo Mbotela. We have branches of mass communication so that the young men and women who go and study journalism, Mr. Speaker, can go and learn how to be a good journalist. So that we don't have journalism that incite, Mr. Speaker, I'm very disappointed that every time I wake up and you see the national headlines of respectable newspapers inciting the nation or inciting Kenyans against the government of the day, Mr. Speaker, on several occasions, say that you wonder what is the editorial policy of some of these media groups, Mr. Speaker. They put funny things, Mr. Speaker. One of them is Nairobian, Mr. Speaker. They are embarrassing members of long-standing, like my brother from Turkana and many other members, Mr. Speaker. I am asking myself, what is the editorial policy, Mr. Speaker, before publishing a screaming headline? Mr. Speaker, even yesterday they were saying that the government has moved payment in the nation to M-Pesa. But when the Ministry of Labor introduced, give the correct position, it was not there, Mr. Speaker. Why is it that, and this, I think Mambo Mbotela must be turning in his grave. Because the way media and editorial policies that we have must be one of the sensational, Mr. Speaker. That I read the headlines, you read the headline and the story. The headline says something different. You go to the story, it says something different, Mr. Speaker. Even in the reporting of the radio and news anchor, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether, is it, Mr. Speaker, is it Kenyans like negative news? Say that all media houses have decided to just give out negative. You watch news, Mr. Speaker, from item number 1 to number 10 is only negative news. Somebody has been killed. Government people have demonstrated against. There is somebody whose wife has been murdered somewhere, Mr. Speaker. There is a church in Bomet called Bethel that is beating worshippers. There is somebody who is running away without clothes in Indian auction. And that is what we have glorified, Mr. Speaker. We must agree that in the spirit of protecting the independence of media, and that 34 and 35. They must also be responsible. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are hesitant in regulating the media, because we believe they should have self-regulations, Mr. Speaker. I know of colleagues who have taken even media to court over misinformation, misrepresentation of facts, Mr. Speaker. And it is not hard. If you have to report anything, Mr. Speaker, and I want to ask media, we respect, we celebrate them. They are a medium of communication. They communicate to the people. Mr. Speaker, as the proceedings on Kony, it is media that we rely on to communicate through national televisions or through local dialects, Mr. Speaker, so that we can see how the communication is being done. We must agree as a country, and I want to call upon the editors. And even, Mr. Speaker, you saw yesterday on many occasions, even in interviews, somebody is clearing misinformation, and the journalists are not seek for evidence to that effect, Mr. Speaker. So we must, I don't think in the spirit of Mambo Mbotela, envisage a media that can be used as a tool of incitement. He envisaged a media that could rely, accurate, verified, most importantly, and protecting the integrity of media in the country, Mr. Speaker. And I know we are not saying people should not criticize parliament or judiciary or any other sector, Mr. Speaker. We agree they have a role to play. But we must, as a country, ensure that we report, media reports accurate, verified, and information with integrity, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in the celebration of life of Mambo Mbotela, we celebrate that we must do things that when Mambo Mbotela says, "Je ni ungwana," we must carry ourselves as leaders with dignity, with respect, and we must build the nation. I think that was the clarion call of the late Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker. I want to call upon national heroes to continue to award Mambo Mbotela posthumously, Mr. Speaker, with the highest honors, so that many young journalists that are with us at the moment can aspire to be at the level of Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, as I second, Mr. Speaker, is to wish the family of Mambo Mbotela the grace that surpasses human understanding, so that as they mourn one of their father, the husband, the grandfather, they also have a hope that the country continue to celebrate the great strides and remarks and achievement in the media industry. With those many remarks, I second, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fasiaya, we are waiting for you to take your seat. You may take your seat, Senator. Now, honorable senators, I will now propose the question. They're aware that the late Leonard Mambo Mbotela, a renowned media personality, passed away on the 7th of February 2025 at the age of 84, cognizant that he had an illustrious career in media spanning over 5 decades and was one of the most influential voices in Kenyan radio, especially through his long-running radio and television program, AJAABU ni Ungwana. Further, cognizant that his command of the Kiswahili language kept Kenyans informed on many topics, while his exceptional football commentaries on radio brought joy to many people and popularized the sport at a time when live football on television was rare. Appreciating the lasting legacy that he leaves in the media industry and the high esteem in which he was held by colleagues and persons from all walks of life, Now, therefore, the Senate expresses its deep sadness at the death of Mr. Mbotela, records its celebration and appreciation of his remarkable life, and extends its heartfelt sympathy and condolences to his family, friends, and the nation. Now, Honorable Senators, the floor is open for contribution. Yes, Majority Leader, what is your point?
Mr. Speaker, I raise understanding order number 111 on limitation of debate. And the reason why I want us to limit debate is, number one, Mr. Speaker, this person has since been buried more than a month, I think, or 3 weeks. But that does not take away the great contribution he made to the country. Given that at 5 o'clock, Mr. Speaker, we know the event that many of us will be attending, then it will be in order if we limit debate so that as many people as possible get a chance to speak, Mr. Speaker. And if possible, maybe then looking at time that we hardly have barely just an hour, Mr. Speaker, if time permits, we see how many people can speak from both sides, Mr. Speaker. So I want to request that this debate be limited to 2 minutes, Mr. Speaker, per speaker. I think three will be reasonable, Mr. Speaker. Two is by the time you arise 2 minutes over, but 3 minutes, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Honorable Senators, we may do this procedurally or through consensus. So 3 minutes, each speaker speaking for not more than 3 minutes. Honorable Senators, because we wish to hear all of you, especially those wishing to speak and looking at the business ahead, I would urge you, we stick with the 3 minutes. But again, this is in your hands. Do we then, by consensus, take 3 minutes as the time in for each senator speaking? So, Honorable Senators, I will call those who've indicated to speak, and the time as agreed should be not for more than 3 minutes. Are we good? We are spending more time on this matter, time that ought to have actually gone to the actual debate. So 3 minutes it is. Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa nataka kuchukua fursa hii kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi kwa familia, jamii na marafiki wa Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Bwana Spika, itakumbukwa kwamba mtangazaji Leonard Mambo Mbotela alikuwa ni gwiji wa Kiswahili. Nataka kusema ya kwamba mimi mwenyewe nilimwenzi, na pengine hata kukipenda Kiswahili ni kwa sababu yake, na watangazaji wengine kama Billy Omara, mtangazaji Njuguna Gatei, pamoja na Muhammad Juma Njuguna na wale wengine, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, kusudi ya kumpenda ni kwa sababu yeye alifanya kazi nzuri ya kuikosoa jamii na kile kipindi chake cha Je, huu ni ungwana, jambo ambalo lilionekana kwamba halikukubalika katika jamii. Alikuwa ni mwepesi wa kukosoa na bila kuogopa, Bwana Spika. Na vile vile pengine kwa wakati ule aliweza kukosoa, pengine kama ninakumbuka kwa wakati mwingine wale wazee, wakati kulikuwa na wazee wamepewa bonus, Bwana Spika, na mzee alikwenda akajivinjari na mvinyo, hata kwenda nyumbani na kutosomesha watoto. Bwana Spika alikuwa akiuliza, je, huu ni ungwana kwa nyinyi wazee? Baada ya watoto na mama kufanya kazi ngumu, lakini baada ya kupokea malipo unapata hakuna manufaa yote. Bwana Spika, na hayo maswali pengine angelikuwa hivi leo angeliuliza, je, huu ni ungwana kwa wakulima wa Narok kufanya kazi ngumu, Bwana Spika, ya kukuza ngano na hatimaye kutoweza kuuza ile ngano yao? Bwana Spika, je, huu ni ungwana? Bwana Spika, hayo ni maswali ambayo aliyafanya kwa kuweza kuikosoa jamii. Bwana Spika, si hivyo peke yake. Bwana Spika, aliweza kutangaza mpira, na vile alivyokuwa akitangaza mpira, vile alivyokuwa akitohoa maneno, Bwana Spika, niliweza kujua mambo mengi pale, kwa sababu alisema hasa sisi wa Kikuyu tuna ile shida ya maharaja. Aliweza kufafanua vile ambavyo ungeweza uweze kutoathiriwa na lugha ya mama, hiyo ndio maharaja. Naona seneta wa Mombasa ananiangalia. Kwa hivyo aliweza kuelezea vile ambavyo ungeweza kuongea lugha ya Kiswahili, na pengine nikamuiga na nikaweza kupata mambo mawili au matatu. Bwana Spika, nikimalizia nakumbuka vile ambavyo alikuwa akitoa taarifa zake, Bwana Spika, na vile alivyokuwa akiongea. Nakumbuka akisema vile ambavyo rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya alipokuwa mwaka wa 1982, wakati yeye mwenyewe alipokuwa KBC na ama VOK, na vile alivyoshambuliwa, Bwana Spika, aliweza kusimulia, na ukisikia akisimulia ile hadithi, Bwana Spika, unaipenda, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo siku ya leo sisi tunamsherekea na tunamwenzi, pengine vile seneta wa Nandi alivyosema.
Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Honorable Speaker, I join my colleagues in celebrating the life of an illustrious career person in the media fraternity, the late Leonard Mambo Mbotela. We celebrate him because of the legacy he leaves behind. Honorable Speaker, we remain very proud of him. We thank God he lived up to the last years of his life, and we continue to condole with the family. As I celebrate him, Honorable Speaker,